Thank you guys so much for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I'm excited about my next guest because, as I mentioned in a post today, we're the product of the people that we surround ourselves with. But what about people that we collaborate on books with? So that's the question today. Um, Mr. Bob Burg is here with us, and he and I have been collaborating on a project with Dr. Sophie Nubani. And so it's a pleasure to meet him in person and just to hear the man behind the voice is what I said before we got on camera, because we actually got connected through Clubhouse.
Right.
So I want to give the floor over to Mr. Bob Burg to just tell us a few things about him before we get into this great interview.
Hi, Lachelle. It's so great to be with you. And yeah, we did meet on Clubhouse, didn't we? And where it's a great platform, but it's kind of a little lacking in the visual aspect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we can always be young on through our voice.
Yeah,
right?
well, exactly. Plus we can put up, 30-year-old pictures of ourselves and
Exactly.
too. So people would see my gray hair, but
Right.
but no, I'm just I started as a broadcaster, I always say I graduated into sales and really got into sales and personal development and began doing pretty well with that. And, eventually I began a speaking business. And as part of that, there's writing and so forth. And that leads all the way up to tonight, where I get to speak with someone with whom I've collaborated on the book of one of my greatest dear friends. And I think we all love Sophie.
Mhm. Absolutely. And so she named you the creative, exceptional influencer. So
She's so sweet. She comes up with wonderful names for everybody. She's got to be the most encouraging human being I've ever met.
So true. I couldn't agree more. And so it's a great thing to be a collaborator on that project. So this is the book, Optimize Your Creative Mindset. So we want to give her a shout out. She's not here with us, but with us in spirit.
Yeah.
So wonderful book. I mean, a great read, something that's kind of like a reference is what I say. You can always yes, you can always find something to dive into.
I mean, I can only imagine the work she put into that.
I know. You know what's the most amazing? She wrote it on her cell phone.
No way.
Yes, the whole thing.
How could that
cell
be?
phone? Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So that's one of the things. That's our little trivia about her tenacity and perseverance to do that. And I'm telling you guys, it's a big one, all on her cell phone. But anyway,
that's amazing.
So The Go-Giver, this book is something that is just synonymous with your name. 2007 was when it was written, but it's 2021. How does such a book still remain relevant after all these years?
Well, I mean, I think the message itself, I think stays topical only because the principles that are involved can pretty much apply to any time. There's always a reason to maybe utilize those 5 laws, only because the 5 laws that John David Mann, my awesome, amazing co-author, that we shared in the book, they've been around since time immemorial. Successful people have always utilized those laws. They may not have always known it. They may have done so intuitively, and others studied and learned. We simply name them, if you will, and kind of put them together in one. But I think the laws themselves have just always been around, and so because of that, it's not like there was a 2-year window, for the book to sort of be relevant, and that was it. So I think that's really more. And we continue to promote it, and we've had great people like yourself and Sophie who've told people about it and so forth. So it's certainly not a lone effort on my part or on John's part. I mean, it's really, we call it Team Go-Giver because everybody seems to be involved in getting the word out about it.
Absolutely. And so, my question is, going back to 2007 and before that book was written, what was your vision to write it? Because, most things we kind of grow into, it's
Mhm.
like the journey that gets us to where we want to be. But
Sure.
yeah, so what was it like for that journey? What was it that happened that made that something that needed to be documented?
Well, years earlier, I guess the early to mid '90s, I had my first kind of big book out, which was called Endless Referrals: Network Your Everyday
Mhm,
Contacts into Sales. That was the subtitle of it, and it was
mhm,
really a how-to manual, if you will, for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought wonderful value to people, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the process of going out into their communities and
mhm,
developing and cultivating the kind of relationships that would lead people to want to do business with them directly and refer them to others, which, as you know, is so very important. You can have the greatest
mhm.
product or service in the world, but if nobody knows about it and no one knows you and likes you and trusts you, it's going to be hard to, for them to leave your garage or office space or wherever it is that you have them. So,
Exactly.
so the book was really about building relationships, and the premise was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So
Mhm,
I'd always, but it was a how-to book, a very standard how-to book. Uh, I'd always read parables though, since I'd begun in sales, was starting with Og Mandino's wonderful book, the Greatest Salesman in the World, and of course he had a number of those kinds of books. There were the books by Ken Blanchard and Spencer Johnson, the 1 minute
mhm.
series,
1-minute books, I love those, yeah.
salesman, 1 minute apology, 1 minute this, 1 minute that, right? And they're all wonderful, fantastic
Mhm,
books. Um, uh, People, and there were a bunch of them. And then as it got into the 2000s, there were people like Chris Widener and John Gordon, and just wonderful writers. So I always loved reading those parables,
mhm,
and because I think parables, the fact that they're stories, I think
mhm.
they connect on a deeper level than a how-to book. There's more of an emotional connection. That whenever I'd read those books, I always felt a connection with the author. I felt a connection with the characters, and I felt a connection with the message. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take the premise, the know, like, and trust premise from Endless Referrals, and put it into a parable? So in coming up with the title, it was pretty easy because I just asked, well, what's the main characteristic? What's the essence of that entrepreneur or salesperson who is able to very quickly and sustainably create those know, like, and trust relationships. And what it comes down
Mhm,
to is they're givers. They're always giving in terms of value. Their focus is on bringing immense value to others. So coming up with the go giver, that was easy. But the best thing I did for that book, Lachelle, was to ask John David Mann to
mhm,
co-author it with me and be the lead writer and the storyteller because he's a magnificent writer. I'm a how-to guy. I'm step by,
mhm.
one, two, three. John is a great writer and storyteller, and he just, he it was just magnificent having the opportunity, the honor of working with him. So it really only took us a few minutes once we sat down and decided what we wanted the story to really be.
Mhm.
It took about 3 months to get it written, but then over the course of a year, we were, rejected by, I think, 25, New York publishing houses until
Mm,
finally, a year later, through our agent, we met the good people at Portfolio, which is a business division of Penguin Random House, and they
mhm.
turned out to be a wonderful, publishing partner.
Wow. That is just awesome. And, you mentioned something key about knowing what your co-author's strengths were.
Yeah.
So, for somebody who's watching, we are kind of like reinventing ourselves in a lot of places because of the industry and how things are changing based on this pandemic.
Yeah.
And so, people may not know how to collaborate.
Mhm.
So you being the endless or the king of referrals, but knowing how to, just make that collaboration. So for somebody who doesn't know how to do that, what are some things they need to look for?
Well, I mean, I think there are a few basic things. One is you obviously look for someone whose strengths complement yours. It doesn't.
Mhm.
There's times when it's great working with someone whose strengths are the same. You can
Mhm.
certainly get more done in less time. But I think all things being equal, you want to collaborate with someone whose strengths complement your strengths,
Mhm.
so that you have two different sets that you're bringing to the table. But I also think that there has to be, a style similarity. John and I found that we
Mm.
pretty much agree on everything. I mean, when it comes to basic philosophy of life, of business, of
Mm.
success, I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some times we've written 4 books together in the series, so there are times we would have disagreements about certain elements of things, but our
Mhm.
philosophies are right on, are so congruent with each other. So that,
Mm.
and then I think it's a matter of collaborating with someone of high character, someone you
Mm.
know is trustworthy, uh,
Mhm.
right? And of course, John, is fantastic with that too. So yeah, that I think is really what it comes down to.
I love that. And I think that's some great points because, many of us, you're kind of stuck in your ways. It's like, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. And now that you reinvent yourself, you've got to kind of get out of your comfort zone, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so my next question is thinking about, I've been going through a lot of your videos, and it's like 5, 7 years ago, you used to do these mini segments on YouTube. And so now that's the thing, short clips on YouTube, but you were doing it way back then. So being a trailblazer, you
I'm
know,
usually not called that, believe me. That's
hey,
I knew you
look,
were going there, and I'm thinking, "Oh, if
we
you only knew
appreciate
me."
it. Okay. Look, if we didn't have any trailblazers, we wouldn't know where we were going. I'm just saying. Okay. So knowing that, I mean, what was it that you saw that helped you to kind of go against the grain of what other people were doing?
I just felt that people's attention spans, weren't gonna, go for a lot longer than that, and that I didn't necessarily think I had enough to be able to keep them longer than that. I mean, there are some that can, don't get me wrong. There are people who can
Mhm.
do very long videos, and I'll sit all the way through them because they're so good. I felt with me that they needed to be shorter. They needed to be
Mhm.
more, try to take one. You can always continue something. You can always do part 2 or part 3, or, we'll hit
Mhm.
that aspect in the next video, right? You can always do those.
Mhm.
But I think when you keep them to 2.5, 3 minutes, I just think it's a sweet spot.
Mhm.
With my podcast, we try to keep them to 20, between 25 and 30 minutes. And I know
Yeah.
people who do those long form ones, and they're like, that would be tough for me to, to do that and hold an audience, I think. So
Mhm.
I think we have to kind of know our own strengths and our
Yeah.
limitations and be able to deal with the truth of them. And I think mine work better as a 2.5 to 3 minute video. So I think
Mhm.
it was more that than thinking that I knew something that someone else didn't do. I think I was just playing to my own strengths.
I love that. And because it is so true. A lot of times we just try to put everything on the table. It's like having a buffet of food and trying to eat everything at one setting instead of realizing, okay, it's not going anywhere. I can take a little bit at a time.
Very
So I
wise,
love that. And, so I'm thinking just about the title, Go Giver. How did you come up with a name, for a title of a book? I just
yeah.
think, it's something that just it's timeless. It's easy to remember. I mean, what did you go through to come up with that title?
So there were a couple things. I alluded to one part, but it was only one part earlier when I said it was the, people who build those kinds of great relationships. They're
Mhm.
givers. That's the first part, but that wasn't the only part. It was
Mhm.
also that the title is a pattern interrupt because we think of the go-getter, right? And
Mm.
now here's the interesting thing. And by the way, there was a book, The Go-Getter, written about 50, 60 years ago by a person named Peter Kine, and it's a wonderful book. It's one of my favorite parables, The Go-Getter.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
a lot of people think a go-getter is the opposite of a go-giver, but we don't think so.
Mm.
We love go-getters because go-getters take action. right? And
Right.
you're a very successful entrepreneur. You know that you can have all the best thoughts, nicest ideas, and the greatest intent, but unless actions put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. So we want people to be go-getters, people of action, and
Mhm.
go-givers, people who are absolutely laser focused on providing immense
Mm.
value to others. That's a strong combination. So be a go-getter and a go-giver, but we would say don't be a go-taker. That's the person
Oh.
who feels entitled to take without
Mhm.
added value to the person, to the process, to the situation. So there was the aspect of it being one, that it's the essence of of the person who we want to focus on, but
Mhm.
also that the title itself is a pattern interrupt, because you think of go getter and you see go giver.
Mhm.
And also with the title go giver, it's one of those titles that you can kind of interpret however you want,
Mhm.
and people often do. Um, and we like that idea because we wanted
Oh.
people to see the go giver and say, what is that really about?
Mhm.
The title is a little story about a powerful business idea. Go giver business? What's that mean? Giving what? And
Mhm.
so, I think that's a little bit of the appeal. I think one thing that's helped, though, in the sale of the book, and one reason why it's been used very much as a gift book, is because you can give someone a book titled The Go Giver, and it's a compliment. Someone gives you,
Mm. Yeah.
"Oh, damn,
That's
that's awesome."
awesome.
Yeah. So, and we hadn't didn't think of that. That I wish we could take credit for that. Brilliant from Mark.
Hey, you know what I mean? It's still that the
Right.
book that keeps on giving, right? Giving you ideas all along. You see what I'm saying? That's great. Yeah, I love that concept because it's a action oriented book. I love like what you said, and a lot of people don't really think about that. It's like we're all into the cover or other things that really don't. Um, really give the book a chance, so to speak.
Right, right.
You want people to talk about it. You want it to be conversational. You want them to advocate for your book and be a voice for it. So I think that is just awesome how you were able to come up with that concept and for people to see that it wasn't something that you just came up with on the fly. You were intentional about it. So I think that's good to mention.
Thank you. Well, I think the
Hmm.
title is, it's such an important part because, we're alluding to, it's like, the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, but we do.
Hmm. Exactly. So true. So true. So, what principle do you think out of those five laws are the most prominent for people to remember during this time with this pandemic and as we prepare for life after such craziness?
Well, I mean, obviously, the law of value, which is all about the experience you provide another
Mm-hmm.
person, understanding that value, unlike price, which is finite,
Mm-hmm.
value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something to the end user or beholder. So value is always about what they believe to be of value, what they find to
Mm-hmm.
be worth, not what we did. And I think it's always a reminder that we've always got to look at it from the other person's viewpoint. Uh,
Mm.
I often, when I used to speak at sales conferences, I'd often begin by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet. Okay, they're
I
not
see.
right. They're not going to buy from you because you need the money, and
Right.
they're not even going to buy from you because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy
Mm-hmm.
from you only because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. That's That's the only reason why someone's gonna do business with you, why they're gonna wanna get to know you better, why they're gonna wanna be in a relationship with you, why they wanna be, because they believe their life is gonna be better as a result. So I think we always have to be asking that question. How
I
do
think.
how do they value this? How do they see this? So I think that's important. And I think the law of influence which says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interest first. Now,
Mhm.
they place other people's interest first. That doesn't mean we should be a doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial. That's not what we're saying. But it's again understanding that when we can move from an I focus or me focus to what we
Mhm.
call an other focus. Okay.
Mhm.
That is the fastest, the most powerful, the most effective way to cause people to feel good about you. All right.
So
To
true.
want to get to know you, to like you, to trust you. So
Mhm. I love that. And I mean, everything that you're saying is stemming around being curious and asking questions. I have definitely learned on my journey just here recently after, being in this book with Dr. Sophie was overcoming depression and unlearning a lot of things and learning to ask different questions to have different outcomes. So
mm,
I love how you mentioned engaging people with that because it makes it more of a relationship rather than telling somebody or commanding them to do things.
absolutely.
People come together to create together. So I think that's phenomenal.
Mhm.
So, one thing that's been consistent with your videos are books in the background. Okay.
I always say, Lachelle, that my house is comprised of books with some scattered furniture.
I feel you. I feel you. I'm the same way. I have them stacked everywhere. So for me, one thing I would say is as a reader, how do you discipline yourself to write? Because if you're reading, you know what I'm saying? How do you just say, okay, we're going to get this done?
So I love reading. I
Hmm.
don't love writing. Okay, so
Um,
I always say, and I know I didn't make this up. Somebody had said it, before me, but I don't like writing books. I like having written books. Okay, whereas someone like John, my co-author, he loves writing books, and that's what he
I-
does all the time. He's co-author and ghostwriter for numerous books and other authors, and he loves it. He could sit there and write all day. Um, I could sit there and read all day. So, but you got to do what you got to do, and so you have to discipline yourself to write. But yeah, there's times I'm reading a book and I have to put it down and say, okay, Berg, start writing.
Mhm.
Now it's time to write. But a lot of writers also, from what I understand, had that feeling, and they had to discipline themselves. There was one writer, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was a fairly famous or very famous writer, author, who said something like, I write only when I'm motivated to write, and I'm motivated at exactly 8 a.m. every morning because,
Wow.
yeah, because he disciplined himself to
Right.
get there and write at 8 a.m. So, so what he was saying is it really doesn't matter if I'm motivated or not. I'm doing
Exactly. I'm getting it done.
it.
Scheduling it, writing it on the calendar. If it's not written, it's not happening. I love that. So, with all these books, I'm just curious, what's your couple of your favorite ones?
um, so let's see. Do you mind if I turn my back for a moment?
Oh, absolutely. This is keeping it real, Bob, okay?
So this one right here, this was written in 1900 by a man
Wow.
named Orison Swett Marden. He is known by many as the founder of the personal development movement. He was actually the original founder of Success Magazine. Orison.
Oh, wow.
So this book is called Peace, Power, and Plenty, and
Mm.
every page is a gem. It's an original edition, so I couldn't even write in it. Usually, when I have a book, I write
Yeah.
notes and I highlight and I underline, and couldn't do it. So I just made all the notes in on the yellow stickies as far as what
Mhm.
line to look at. But every page is just gems.
I love that. So how did you happen to get that copy?
There was a man by the name of Danny Cox who was one of my speaking mentors years and years ago, and
Okay.
he's the one who turned me on to Orison Swett Marden, and he sent me that book as a gift, and what
Mhm.
a treasure.
That is
Uh,
so awesome.
yeah, yeah.
This
Uh,
is awesome.
yeah, so another book, one I just finished, very recently. I'm looking
Mhm.
for it right here, and I don't know why I'm not finding it because it's always in the same spot. Um, well, apparently I have done something with this book because it's not here.
Isn't
Uh,
that amazing how you can have all those books and
oh,
know something's not right? I mean, I just feel like I'm at a candy store looking at all those books. That is just my thing, having books.
thank you. So this one is called Think Again by
Oh,
Adam Grant, who wrote, the
originals.
originals, yeah,
Mhm.
before that, he had written, Give and Take was another famous book of
Oh.
his. Um, this one is called Think Again: The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. And it's
Oh.
brilliant because it really shows that, we as human beings, we really think that we know more than we know because as human,
Amen.
we make major decisions based on very limited information.
So
All,
true.
all of it that goes through our personal belief system, what I
Mhm.
call our unconscious operating system. And we
Mhm.
think we're right and the other person's wrong. And he just, it gives us such wonderful examples and wisdom in here. And, um, the neat thing about it is he reframes it from not just accepting that you could be wrong, but really being grateful for learning that you're
Mm.
wrong. And that, really allows us to learn more. But it also, as he gets into the second part of the book, it's also in how to help other people see where
Mhm.
they may not be seeing the entire picture, so forth. So it's really, I think, in today's day when there's so much, between politics and other, and all the, the other place where people are just at each other's throat, and
Mhm.
it's not I'm right and you're wrong. It's I'm right, you're evil, right? And if we don't agree,
Right.
that means you must be right. This is a book that I think is probably the most important book of the modern time. I think it's
That I'm excited.
yeah.
So I'm
And
I'm at
then
put that put that on my list. I'm excited, okay?
and then there are books, and this is a big one. Takes a while to get through, but it's fascinating. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow by
Mm.
Daniel Kahneman, and who was a behavioral economist,
Mhm.
real psychologist, and this really shows how people, what causes people to take action, and you
Mhm.
would be amazed at why we do things that are far
Mhm.
from logical and far from rational. And
Wow.
it is absolutely an amazing study.
I love it. Can you show that one more time? Because, people need to see how you're intentional about reading. I love those notes. Yeah. See those notes you're taking there?
Yeah.
That's what, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to read a book. But there's so many, when you read a good book, it's like you can't go on. You have to sit there and process some things that people say.
Oh, exactly. Oh, exactly. And I want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that, when I come back to it, that that I kind of have a good idea of what I'm looking for. Um, yeah, it's just wow. You
Yeah. I love that. There's a lot of meat and potatoes there. This is great. Well, we just thank you again, Bob, for coming today. We know that your time is limited, and I'm excited because we have a private Q&A. We've got some guests that are here to see you, and we're going to do that off camera.
okay.
But what final words would you like to share with the audience?
I mean, I think it's really a matter of keeping our mind open to learn,
Mm-hmm.
to grow, and to understand that, not only do we not have it figured out, but that, the more we do figure out, the more we realize how much more there is to figure out, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of the fun part of it too.
I love that. Well, we just want to thank you guys for watching. Feel free to get on YouTube, look at these phenomenal videos that Bob Burg has for way that you can have referrals, reach out, grow your business, and just great insights. So follow him on YouTube. If you have any questions, reach out, put your questions in the comments below, and pick up that book, The Go Giver. Matter of fact, pick up two and give one away. That's what we are about, the spirit of giving. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and we will see you all on the next episode. Bye for now.